we got to be in our word. Our whole family, like, we got to be in the word, right? When you drive to the coffee shop in the morning, instead of the sports radio, you know, put on, like right now, the gospel plan that we're doing all the way up into Easter. Just be fed, because that word is alive. That word, as you said this last weekend, reads you as much as you read it. And it does.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Brave Way podcast. Today in studio is my good friend, Brock Huard. Brock, welcome to the show.
Oh, this is fun. Like, I feel like you and I do podcasts every time we chat off the air. So
It's nice to
now
do
we're
it
going
in
to do it on
person.
the air. Here we go.
It's great.
Yes.
Well, hey, thanks for being here. Just tell our people a little bit about you, what you've been doing, who you are.
A little bit about me, huh? Well, I come from the poor man Manning's family, the Manning JV family. There's three boys, just like Peyton and Eli and Cooper. There was Damon, Brock, and Luke, three boys. Grew up outside of Seattle in Puyallup. Keith Jackson used to say Puyallup. He's a lefty from Puyallup. Football is what we knew growing up.
Yep.
My dad was our high school football coach, and very communal, loving family he built a pretty neat program out there. And Damon, my older brother, Luke, my younger brother, and I all played quarterback for him, and we all played college. And Damon played 12 in the league, and I played 6 in the league. And football's kind of been a big part of my life. Looking back at it, I'll be 49 next week. There's not a day that's gone by, really, in any of my formative years growing up where sports and football didn't put food on the table. After I was done playing, got into broadcasting, and been doing that almost 20 years, talking football, making a big life change to step into actually coaching football, which maybe we'll get into here in a little bit as well, pouring into my youngest son. My wife, Molly, and I will be married 26 years. Met her in college. She was a hooper. Got 3 kids. One's getting married in June, which is gonna be life-changing.
Yes.
One plays basketball at Oklahoma State, and then Titus. So girl, boy, Haley, Macy, and Titus.
Yep.
So there's our 1-minute little snapshot of yours
I
truly.
love it. And we got to know each other a few years ago because you moved here after all the 2020 stuff, all the things that were happening out in Seattle.
Yep.
You moved here. I remember almost when you moved here because Peyton texted me immediately. He's like, you got to go meet this guy. You got to meet Brock. And so I think we went to PF Chang's or something.
We did.
Lunch.
Yep. You like the spicy chicken? You still like it?
I do.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. So
it's 5 years ago, by the way. It'll be 5 years this summer. Pretty amazing how fast that's gone.
It goes quick.
And a lot of my friends, Washington and the coast, just went crazy during COVID. And we knew like there was a holy stirring. We got to do this. And left 44 years of really being planted there. Playing for Washington, playing for the Seahawks, home there, family there, church there, amazing church there, and just felt a holy stirring like it's time to go. And my kids were finishing high school up, and we, a lot of my friends also moved in my small group. There were 4 of us, and one moved to Orange County, one moved to Texas, we moved to Colorado, one remnant's remained, bless his heart. And most of them have had a hard time finding a church. And that's one of the neat blessings, man, is moving here. And within a couple months, people are like, oh, you got to go to Brave. Yeah, you all got to go to Brave. And really been pretty plugged in since.
Well, your family's always been an encouragement to our family, to me personally, and love having you here. A couple things people may not know about you. One is not only were you drafted by the Seahawks in what year was that?
99. Last century. Last century.
Third round?
Third round.
What pick?
77. But
I was going to guess that. I was going to guess that. 77 pick.
God's number.
And then you played for the Seahawks. You ended up playing for the Colts. You backed up Peyton. Then you were back with the Seahawks.
Yep.
And but it's interesting. I mean, during your career, I mean, even in college, I remember hearing about you through Fellowship of Christian Athletes that Jesus has always been an influence in your life, still is an influence in your life. So the way you make decisions, Jesus is primary. You're not one of those guys that just kind of talks about him or, has him as an addendum. He's very important to you. And one of the things that you've chosen to do now in this season is you're changing vocations a little bit. You've been doing college broadcasting for a number of years now. This coming fall, you're going to be coaching at Valor Christian High School here in Denver. Your son will be a sophomore. Our sons are the same age. And so talk about that. Talk about that life decision. Talk about why you made that decision, because that's not just an easy decision to make. It's not something you do in a cavalier way. You've thought it through. You prayed it through. How are you led to do that?
Yeah, it's interesting as you kind of bring me back to 99 and through my years growing up and my quick little bio is, gosh, I was sharing with just somebody a couple weeks ago and a young person that was just trying to evaluate what's next in their life and future and marriage and all sorts of stuff. And I remember my late great pastor, Pastor Hutch at Antioch Bible Church, and I told you the
Who I
first
had to met. I've
time I
met
met
him.
you, yes, the first time I met you, I said, "Man, you're the white Hutch. You got the same shaped head, the goatee, all of it, and you both speak truth and you live in truth." And it's black and white in a gray world was Antioch Bible Church. And Hutch would always say, "You want to know the Lord's will. Everybody always wants to know the Lord's will, Lord's will." And he would say, "What is God calling? Where door is opening?" And who is he bringing you in relationship
Hmm.
with? Open your eyes, open your ears, open your heart, pray upon it, and doors will open. Relationships will be had. You'll go to PF Chang's with a new pastor and you'll connect. And that has been really my life story since seventh grade, eighth grade, when I committed to Christ.
Hmm.
Like, oh, Scott Sears, here's this relationship, here's this youth pastor. And for the next 4 years, we're going to sit in accountability group with Eric and Jason. We're going to walk through life
Hmm.
together. Boom, to Washington. Here's Mike Gunn and Mike Rohrback from FCA and AIA, and they're going to come alongside you, and you're going to work with them and grow with them and lean into them. And Scott and Mike are going to be marrying you and Molly out of college.
Mm.
And then boom, I'm going to take you to the Seahawks. And you go to the Seahawks, you're going to have Pastor Hutch, who used to play for the Seahawks in the 70s. It's got a vibrant church for you, and Todd Peterson and John Kitten. And I'm going to put believers on your hip. Oh, boom, I'm going to trade you to Indy. And there's Tony Dungy, and there's Eric Simpson, amazing chaplain, amazing church. I'm gonna plug you in. Like everywhere I've gone, and then done playing and staying there in Washington, and having a small group and having Antioch Bible Church and
Hmm.
Carl Payne and great ministry and pro athletes outreach and moving here. And guess what? I move out here and pro athletes outreach head president lives in my
He's your
neighborhood.
next door neighbor, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
lives in our neighborhood. And so, yeah, I would say that's been a ton of it. And in this step of faith, it's been like, well, this is the door that's opening. My heart kind of leans into this, and I think it's time, and my contract's up with Fox, and I'm going to miss like heck a lot of the people that I love to work with.
Yep.
But this door and this chapter is closing, and this door is opening, and I don't know all what it's going to look like. But when it opens, take that step of faith.
So talk to us about this job. What are you going to be doing this
I'll be
fall?
the tight ends coach, baby. Back to my sophomore year, 1993. Sophomore year of high school, playing for my dad, playing tight end, loving every second of it. We had an all-state senior
I
quarterback,
didn't know you
Darren
played
Ereth.
tight end.
Oh yeah, Darren was a really good player, won a national title, small college, and so played tight end, then played QB my last 2 years. And no, just a neat believing coach, came in, a lot of background with, in college football, and I just felt this again. I call it a holy stirring.
Hmm.
Whether you want to call it Lord's will, whether you want to call it an open doors, whether you want to call it a step of faith, you just kind of know, like when you go to bed, or for me, this is really weird, but I'm a bathtub guy, and I sit in the tub, and that's my quiet time. And oftentimes, like there's just a stirring, like when you're still and you're quiet, you just feel that stirring,
Hmm.
and then and I don't know. I know I've got a lot to learn. I know for 19 years I've done broadcasting, and I told our new head coach this. I said, "Man, for 19 years, Mike, so much of my business, and I do a morning radio show too, is so much reacting to breaking news, reacting to the games, reacting to the stories, reacting to interviews, right? A lot of it is reacting. It's going to be neat to be on the other end of that, on the proactive side,
The
the
planning, the
planning, right? The
strategy.
strategizing, the game planning, the teaching, the equipping, the love, like, yeah. And we've had, I don't know, a handful of practices on the field already. And each time I've kind of driven to practice, and just actually the morning of this taping, we had a little prayer and just said, Lord, you've opened this door, right? Just let me be a light to
Hmm.
these young men. And every time, there is a little bit of nervousness because it's all unknown, all new. And I get on the field and I'm like, oh man, I just love these guys. And the student athletes, they don't really change. Parents can change, environment can change, but honestly, when I see Jarrett or Roger or Cash, I see John Crack and Jack Widman and Dane Looker from 1990s at Puyallup High
Hmm.
School, you know? And they want to be taught, and they want to be encouraged, and they want to be built up. They got to deal with a lot more crap than you and I did in this society, in this
Right, right.
culture, and in the social media realms. but they want to be loved on and taught and equipped in the same way you and I did.
Yep. Well, you've been in our Warrior Summit for 2 years. You were the MC year one.
Got
Last year you
fired.
spoke.
To be clear, I got
You
fired
didn't gotta
from
get
the
fired.
MC role.
No, you're awesome.
Well, the lawsuits weren't great, right? When I had the old men doing planks and the one-armed
Well,
guy
that's
with the
what I was
broken
going to
arm.
address. That's what I was going to talk about. And I think my son still
Yep.
mentions to this day about the guys like, you said
He had
turn
one
around.
arm, Dad. He had a broken arm and a sling, and Mr. Huard made him do a one-arm plank.
Yeah, that was true. And then you called
Yes.
that a guy, he told him he had a nice power base.
Good power
We
source.
call that a power source.
Yeah.
So TJ talks about that all the time.
Yes.
But even doing that, something as
Yep.
simple as just at a men's event being competitive. I mean, you can see in you that you have that fire still. That you want to see people go beyond. I
Mhm.
think that's what a good coach does, right? A good coach
Yep.
not only sees where you're at and wants to pour into you and help you. A good coach is saying, "Hey, I'm going to light a fire in you so you can go beyond." So has some of that that itch been stirred a little bit as you get out on the field? Are you watching that begin to
Yeah.
come out of you?
Yeah, it'll be interesting, Jeff. Like, again, as we sit here on this day in early April, before the onset of all this summer training and season, everything else, there's a part of me that's like, well, I'll go back to broadcasting, because for 19 years it was that. And this year, knowing I was closing the door at the end of the year, the crew threw me a surprise party, and it was super special. And it was almost out of body, right? As I was listening to these people talk about, and I didn't ever think like I was a coach, but to listen to them, they're like, oh man, you coached us up and you challenged us and you empowered us, and the cameramen and women and the team, and you sat in these meetings and you put all your game plan together and notes, and it's like, yeah, I guess I kind of have been doing some of that, because that's a lot of what I watched growing up with my dad, who was an amazing coach, and what I watched Tony Dungy and Mike Holmgren and Jim Lambright and these coaches that I played for and was around. So yeah, part of me thinks I'll go back to broadcasting. A little part of me is like, maybe I just love this. And maybe this is the next calling in my life.
Yep.
Frank Reich, the name?
Yep.
Old Buffalo Bills quarterback. And I remember with the Colts, I had just finished there like in '03, and Frank came in, raised his kids, came in, and he and his wife, like in real partnership, were in agreement, like, okay, kids are out of the house. Time for you to like give back to what you know. And he started out as like a quality control QB coach for the Colts with Peyton. And then all of a sudden he's like the QB coach, and then all of a sudden he's coordinator, and all of a sudden he's a head coach, and like Super Bowl champ at the Eagles and Colts, and now at Stanford. And I don't know. I'll be kind of anxious to see what this
Be
next
interesting.
chapter is, if it's here with Titus for the next 3 years and these boys and this school, or it's like, no, this lights a fire of, hey man, you're kind of called to this next. We'll see.
Well, it's in your family's blood too, because your
Yep.
brother still coaching at
Yep.
USC.
Yep.
So you're familiar with how all of this works, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And Damon likes, and Luke even joke around. I'm not like my father in many ways. I'm really not. But they joke around like, if the three of us, you're the most wired as a coach like him. Luke is
Interesting.
too. My younger brother is an awesome, awesome coach and done a great job in his career. But as I said,
Do you think you'd
We'll
ever
see.
be interested in college or pro?
we'll see.
Okay, you
Yeah.
just don't know. It's one of those you're just holding with an open hand.
Yep.
This is the next step.
This is the next
Let's walk
step.
in it.
This is the door that's open.
But
Maybe
let's
it's
talk
here.
about this specifically. I mean, having played football in my life, know what a huge influence my high school football coach had on me, my college football coaches had on me. You're in a position now as a football coach to have
Yep.
great influence.
Yep.
Talk about what motivates you beyond just, seeing your son over the next 3 years develop into a great quarterback, or these tight ends that you're going to coach develop into something good as tight ends. Like, give me a longer term vision for what you want to pour into these
Yeah, I
guys.
mean, that is just, and you know this from your high school coach and your life experience, like that web of influence, right? That term, I think that's real.
Mhm.
Watching Tony, and you and I were at a Hall of Fame function for Peyton, his function, and Tony was there, and you could feel it, right? Like you
Mhm.
just feel that's a godly man. The Holy Spirit's real and alive in him. He walks what he talks, and that influence then and that impact in so many ways, planting seeds, building up, holding accountable, growing, seeing some come to faith, right? All of that. In Indy, we had 53 guys on the roster. Practice squad wasn't as big as it is now, so call it 58 guys. It was not uncommon on a Friday to see 20 of the 58 at the Friday Bible study
It's
after
amazing.
practice. Why? Because the head man leads and he shepherds the flock in such a way, doesn't say, hey, go to Bible study. Hey, do this. Hey, do that. None of that. He lives that way. And therefore, there's like an aroma, right? Bible talks about that.
Yep.
There's a saltiness. Like, I gotta see what that's all about, because he doesn't just talk it, he really walks it in the peace and the joy and the fruits of the Spirit that are alive in him. I want a part of that. And, my dad did not necessarily do it in the Tony Dungy way. And I don't know how your high school coach was, but just from that position of leadership, that influence you can have. So I'm kind of excited, not kind of, really excited to sit under somebody that's been there and done it as a head coach, as a coordinator at the collegiate level, to learn and to watch and to encourage and to really learn from him as well. So kind of excited for all of that. My dad had a retirement party we threw for him. And this is just like the picture of the web of influence. We were living in Washington still, Damon, my older brother, and I. Luke was coaching, so he flew in. And it was a total surprise. We had 500 people,
Wow.
500 invites. 499 came. Only one was out of town, couldn't do it. A bummer for him. But the other 499 came. There was an old theater that they converted into this space, the Liberty Theater on Main Street in Puyallup. They converted to like wedding reception, and big functional space. And my dad thought he was going to a wedding reception, and he was like, not real excited, not real enthused. Peg's taking me this wedding reception. Oh, gotta go see this thing. And everyone was there, and he walked in, and he was almost comatose. I thought Damon and I looked at each other like, is he having a stroke? Like, this is not good. Like, he couldn't process all these faces, all these players, coaches, people that he put his imprint on, that he impacted and affected and influenced. And what was so neat is there's Kelly Susie, there's Eric Curley, names nobody knows in this market. All of his high school quarterbacks that have become pretty renowned head football coaches, Troy Halfaday, in the market, right? They were influenced, they were impacted. They were, I got to do that. I love Coach Huard. I want to be a coach. I want to learn. And they're all leading their programs now in the communities that we were in. So
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a pretty neat web of influence that coaching can give you.
Well, and I think there's so many life lessons to be learned, right? I mean, you were saying, I mean, my coach never overtly came out and said, I'm a believer and I go to church and do all these things. But there was such a discipline of what was required for us.
Yeah.
We always joke, like, to this day. So in the summers, we always started our conditioning on the first Monday after the 4th of July. And in Central Illinois, it'd be about 100 degrees at 5 o'clock at night. And there'd be
humid.
a fair next door, and it was humid and all this stuff. And I remember practice, it started at 5.
Yep.
Everybody arrived at like 4:15 to 4:30. Everybody would jog out in the field at 4:45. Coaches, as soon as we saw the coaches pull up, we'd jog out in the field. And then when the coach would walk out right at 5, his foot would hit right across the chalk line, and we would start clapping in unison. I mean, it was so disciplined because he'd built something over time.
Yep.
Now, I've been part of a team like that. I've been part of just the opposite when I've coached on some 0-9 teams and people that didn't care. And I mean, you have influence either way.
You do.
Right?
You do.
And so, but I think those carry you, because I always joke with my high school football coach, what an impact he's had on my life. And he's like, one time I was like, I just want to tell you about it. And I said, you've helped me in every aspect of my life except for 2 areas. He's like, what 2? I said, marriage and ministry. I said, those 2. I said, you can't discipline, tell people to get down. And
well, your MC did at the event. He made them get down.
But it's in you. I mean, it's kind of in me still as a pastor, right? And so in terms of what we're building and how we're doing it, because, you take what you do very, very seriously. You realize I play a role. I'm responsible for what I bring, and this is my job. So whether I'm a quarterback or a pastor or a wide receiver or, businessman or whatever, I got to do this because it's the right thing to do.
And I'm guessing you feel the same way. How much joy do you feel when you see people in your flock that go into ministry?
Love it.
That go into leadership, that go plant churches, right? It's that same
Or
influence.
even people that quote don't go into vocational ministry,
Yeah.
they talk about, hey, I'm praying for my mom now, I'm praying for my dad, I'm praying for
Yep.
my sister, I'm praying where we just led somebody to the Lord, this
Yep.
kind of thing. I had
Yep.
a guy 2 weeks ago because I actually shared in a service, just I don't always hear all the good. I usually hear all the bad.
Yep.
And this guy came up, he said, I just want you to know I sent your sermon last week to my brother
Mm,
who has been struggling his whole life with God.
mm,
He heard your sermon, he trusted Jesus, and he's here today. I mean, you hear stuff like that, and it
yeah.
just, okay, praise the Lord.
Yeah.
That's good. God's doing something.
And
So,
that's where sport has got to be more than that, right? And that's where I think Valor Christian, they strive and they fight for it. And it's hard. And the enemy loves to divide and loves pride and loves all these other tools. That's where you got to fight for. Like, sport is ministry, right? Romans 12:1. Used to write that on my wristband. I really wrote it my last year of college. I took a lot more of a beating. But to offer your body as a living sacrifice,
mhm.
football's great in that way. It's hard. That was the first thing this new head coach said to the parent community. He said, "Let me just tell you, football, hard. It's hard. It's hard physically. It's hard at 5 p.m. and 130 heat index in Illinois in high
Mhm.
school, but it's going through that hard, right? That just kind of helps form you and confront things you got to confront.
Mhm.
That's what I love about football, and it gives you a chance to build kind of the connective tissue that not many things can.
It's true. It's true.
Now it can go the other way
It
and get
can.
totally warped and make it all about you and all the pride and all the ego and all the crap that the enemy loves to heap in there and loves to make a mess of all of that stuff. So I'm looking forward to the coaching, to pouring into these boys, seeing the connective tissue that can be built, and really fighting for using sport is ministry.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, and we've seen more, I think, in the last year, more fruitfulness of that.
Mm.
We've seen it in the college ranks. You
Yep.
travel around the country. You know a
Yep.
lot of these guys personally. You even shared some of it in your
Mm-hmm.
talk that you did with our men.
Yep.
Talk about what you're seeing, because I mean, about 6 months ago, I was in a hotel room out in Santa Monica, and the Lord just kept putting in my heart, just our students, our youth, our
Mm.
students, our youth. This next generation is really, really special.
Yep.
There's something that God is doing
Yep.
through His Spirit that's unique, where a lot of these young people they love the Lord. They don't care what other people think. They're
Yep.
vocal about their testimony. They're
Yep.
vocal about Jesus, not just
Yep.
athletes, but everybody. But we're talking about the athletic realm. That's what you're talking
Mhm.
about. Talk a little bit about what you've seen over the last year. I mean, you've been following college sports for a long, long time, but even
Yep.
in this last year, there's been this uptick of people going public for,
Yeah.
hey, it's all about Jesus and
Mhm.
it's all about Him, and that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned that, I even think to my kids, right? My oldest, Haley, 22, will be married this summer, and to see kinda how the whole social media stuff came in 10, 12, 20 years ago, and so see how hard and disruptive it was, I think, to those young people that are like, "What? My eyes are open." It's like taking a bite of the apple, like, "Uh-oh. Uh-oh, what do we do?" You know? And I don't think it's shocking that that bite of the apple is on the back of that iPhone, like, I don't think that's coincidental.
I don't think it is either.
I don't. And to see, like, for 5, 10, 15 years, like, to even compare my oldest, Haley, with my youngest now, Titus, and how, like, their eyes have been opened to some of the real challenges of the social media, some of the stuff that actually isn't healthy. And I find that this generation, that generation that got introduced to all of it's like, whoa, that was really pretty crappy. Like, that's some ugly stuff. All these likes and all this, like, all of that. And by no means is it perfect, is it cured or anything. But I think this next generation, your son, my son, their eyes are open and they're watching. They're like really watching. Like, you're not faking the funk on them. You're not pulling one over,
Nope.
right? And so therefore it's like their eyes are open, their hearts are open. Like, give me something real. And yeah, the Ohio State football team, man, they're baptizing guys on campus. The UConn women's basketball team praising not just God, but Jesus, like like a personal relationship. Because I think there is a thirst and a hunger in this younger generation. At the men's conference, seeing these young people, it's not like, they're not zombies anymore. 10
Nope.
years ago, it felt like there's like a lot of just zombies. They were
Mhm.
just so hooked on that phone that now it's like, yeah, it can still hook me. Yeah, I can still do a lot of negative things, but I'm not a zombie. My eyes are open. What do you got? What's real? What is authentic? I kind of want a piece of that. So, you could become sticky, like when you're real and authentic. I think these people, young people, want to be next to you. Like, gosh, that's real. I want a piece of that.
Yeah, because I think in our generation, I think authenticity always sells.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're
Yep.
just who you are all
Yep.
the time,
Yep.
there's something about that that's
Mhm.
attractive. But I just sense in this next generation that God is doing something
Yeah,
special.
stirring.
I sense a stirring. I guess
Yeah.
that's the best way of saying it
Uh-huh.
without feeling overly charismatic in
Yep.
what I'm saying. I mean, I
Yep.
have no way to objectively say, hey, this. I can objectively say
Mhm.
there's more people going public, and from what I can gather, and
Yep.
I'm not vetting every single story and being like, well, I don't know if he really knows. I don't
Yep.
know that.
Yep.
But it seems that most, and I'm not saying they're not all, but most of them seem very, very genuine when they
Yep.
talk about
Yep.
their personal relationship with Jesus. And that football, to them, that's secondary.
Uh-huh.
I mean, even the quarterback for Notre Dame, when they lost, he's like, "Hey, I tell you what, I still love Jesus, and that's just as authentic to me in the loss as it was to me when we won."
Yeah, I'll tell you a little story that I heard from a former coach, very esteemed coach. If I mention the name, most in the audience, certainly football fans would know it. And he was telling me a story. He said, Brock, I do some work now outside of coaching and some consulting. And he said, man, I got around these really talented players, at the quarterback position. And again, many names that you would know that you would think, oh man, they got the world by the tail. They got everything. They got all, he said, got them in this room and it was just me with them and just the guard was down. And he said, you wouldn't believe the amount of like tears and transparency and vulnerability of like, this is so hard. And I'm carrying so like there's a
Hmm.
authenticity and kind of a vulnerability that I don't know if I felt 10, 15 years ago.
Hmm.
And for sure, all the evils of how quick things happen now for our kids, now everything is sped up and youth sports and social media and all this stuff is sped up and education, like they're just, way more than you and I were in our upbringing. For all of the negative of that, I think it's also, again, brought them to this point of like vulnerability. Like, what am I? What is real? What is authentic? And I don't want to be faked out anymore. And I don't want to be fooled.
Hmm.
And there is a lot more, yeah, outspoken, especially those where that Holy Spirit comes in. I'm like, "Pah, I ain't faking this anymore. Let me just tell you, and I'm unafraid to do it. Maybe coming out of cancel culture too,
Yep.
and all that garbage, and all those lies, and all those misdeeds, and all that stuff that was like, no, you were manipulative. All that was fake. All that was not right, and you're canceling all these people for standing on something they believe in. And
Yep.
maybe coming out of that too has created this
Yep.
this stirring.
Yep. I want to talk a little bit about you before we end today, but one thing for what you do, but then who you are. Like, how do you personally grow your relationship with Christ? I
Mm,
know your wife Molly. I know you guys have a great relationship. Kim and I've been to your
mhm.
house. One thing people don't know about you probably is that you're a culinary chef. You love to cook, and you're very, very good at it. Just telling you. I mean, we're free.
Right.
We're free this summer. We got some time if you want to
Yes.
invite us over again. Um, but what do
Yeah.
you do on a regular basis, like to make sure that your heart is right? I mean, you talked about
Mhm.
driving over and you're praying in the car. So
Mhm.
I know there's not just, I just do this for 5 minutes and then I'm ready for the
Yeah.
day. But what are some of your rhythms that you have in your life that have
Yeah.
helped you
I mean,
grow
you
your
just
faith?
have to, and Molly and I say this quite often, and especially coming out of sermons on Sunday, what we love about Antioch Bible Church and about Brave Church is when you come in here and you hear the word, it convicts you. Like you shouldn't just come in here and I'm good. Got it all figured out. I'm great. Like we were all dead and now we're alive, but we've got to be fed and we've
Hmm.
got to be read and we've got to be equipped and we've got to be connected. That's another thing. I'm really looking forward to jumping onto a staff and in a school where there is going to be some regular structure of Bible studies, with coaches. And because that has been a huge routine in my life through all of my playing days. I mentioned the small group that for 13 years we were together, 5:30 every Wednesday morning. That's a direct reflection of the accountability group that seed that was planted in me in high
Hmm.
school. So you and I have had some periods of time where we have met in some small groups. So you have to have that. You have to have that connective tissue. You have to be in the Word, and that would be the one thing I would say continually. Thankfully, my wife is a wonderful reminder and sounding board of we got to be in our Word. Our whole family, like we got to be in the Word, right? When you drive to the coffee shop in the morning, instead of the sports radio, you know, put on like right now the gospel plan that we're doing all the way
Hmm.
up into Easter. Just again, just be fed because that Word is alive. That Word, as you said this last weekend, reads you as much as you read it,
Hmm.
and it does, and it convicts. So, yeah, love worship. Um, love worship music. I am more prone to tears now than I've ever been in my life. Don't think that will change that sensitivity to just like, yep, to be moved. So, um, yeah, that would be my encouragement. And it's encouraged, like as I'm saying it, like, well, walk it, be connected, be around your brothers, be in your word, be worshiping, and be vulnerable.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I hear several things. One is you made church a priority throughout
Yeah.
your life,
Yep.
right? Not just
Yep.
watching online, but
Yep.
gathering with saints, hearing the
Have
word,
to.
go somewhere where the word of God's taught, be connected to a group
Yep.
of people in some sort of small group or
Yep.
cadre, like we call them here, where you're
Yep.
growing in relationship because you can't do that. And then make your family a priority,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yes.
make sure you're communicating with your family, connecting with your
Yep.
family, connecting with your spouse, doing those things.
Yeah, people will say, Rick, I don't know if I have ministry. I don't know what oh, what is your family? Oh, you don't have to worry about any of that other stuff.
Hmm.
That is your first, as a man, as a God, as a son of God, like that's your first priority, to love your wife, to die for your wife, and then to pour in your kids.
Yep.
Like they're there. And then all the life phases, and you're going through some of the same ones as we are, right? And
Hmm.
then watch your kids. I did have a coach tell me this last season, and I am preparing, I'm girding my loins for June 28th when my daughter gets married. He said, "You watch." And he's a believer, a neat guy. He's an offensive coordinator now at Wisconsin. He goes, "You watch." He said, "I've done a lot of these life experiences, graduations, and, they get engaged." He said, "Walking my daughter down that aisle and handing her over," he said, like for 3 days afterwards, it was like, whoa, whoa, now it's real.
Hmm.
It's not just nearing 50 and that phase of life and my body's telling me I'm getting older. Like, no, that's you're getting, like you're in that second phase of life. What are you going to do with it?
Yep. And it all happened so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, when we moved out here, Brooke was 3 and TJ was 1, and now she's 18 and he's 16, and we got a 12-year-old.
Yep.
So it just happens like that. And so
Yep.
when you start, thinking about the amount of time that's been since we got here,
Mm-hmm.
you multiply that out, and you start saying, yeah, all my kids are grown then, having kids, doing all that, and we're there.
We
Like
are.
we're right on the cusp of doing all that. And so, I tell people that have young families all the time,
Mm-hmm.
they're changing diapers and putting kids to bed. I'm like, I'm glad I'm out of that season. I
Yep.
loved the season when I was in it.
Yep.
I enjoyed it. There's not been a season I haven't invested.
Yep.
I'm glad I'm not in that season anymore, but
Yep.
every season has newer and bigger challenges and newer and
Mm-hmm.
bigger joys. And I know that the 28th will be one of your big
It
joys.
will.
She's a great daughter.
It
She's a great
will.
gal. And
Isn't it weird being almost 50? Isn't it weird? You're not 50 yet,
oh,
are
I
you?
know it. I know what that's like. I'm gonna be the double nickel this year, Brock. So,
Good.
hey, before we leave, anything else
Yeah.
that's on your mind you want to talk about
I'm
today?
just thankful. I'm thankful for this church, for just the heart that the Lord's given you to lead your flock, your humility to do it well, to surround yourself. That's the other thing. Like back to that connective tissue. That's kind of been a buzzword of mine here for a
Hmm.
few years. And just that connective tissue that you need to and we need to build and have, right? We cannot do this thing alone. When I go and share, especially with young people, I like to say, and then back in the Seattle market, the fans are called the 12s. And if
Yeah.
you drive around Seattle, you see the 12 flag a lot. There's the 12s, there's the 12s, there's the 12s. And I do think like the Lord could have done it all. Jesus could have been the Lone Ranger, could have done it all himself. But he knew 12 needed to connect in all different ways. But those 12 needed to connect for the whole church to blossom and for the whole ministry to grow.
It's true.
And it's totally true. And I love that you surround yourself with great people, right? The connective tissue in this church and all the ministries is abundant, it's alive, it's real. And I'm just thankful for that as well, brother.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I tell people all the time, I'm glad I planted at 40 rather than 24. There's something about it.
Yep.
If at 24 I would have planted, we would have seen
Yep.
some of the stuff. I would have thought in some way it was probably related to me.
Yep.
When you go through a bunch of stuff and you realize, you've hit the bottom, you've been through all that,
Yep.
and then you've watched people in your profession, and you've seen people in your profession that they burn out
Yep.
because they don't surround themselves with good people. And I was just seeing a talk the other day where a guy was saying, you got to have somebody in your life that can call you on all your crap. Do you have that? You got to have
Yep.
somebody you can share anything with that will love you no matter what. You got to have that guy you can call at 3 a.m. and be like, I need you over at my house. We're going for a journey.
Mm.
I'll be there.
Yep.
And fortunately for me, I got a lot of people in my life that fit a lot of different roles. And I think a lot of pastors that burn out, a lot of coaches that burn out are guys that don't have that around them,
Yep.
that have thought, I need to do this myself. I'm going to study my Bible myself. I'm going to do this myself. I've never seen anybody like that
Nope.
with long-term success
No.
or value
Nope.
pouring into anybody. We need each other.
Yeah. And typically you go alone, you fall.
Yep.
You fall. You love team sports. I love team sports. You love leading this church. I think I'm going to love leading my tight end group. I know I will, and being a part of
I can't wait to
something
watch
really
you do
special.
it. Yeah.
So,
well, thanks for
awesome.
coming on the
Thank you,
program
brother.
today. It's good to be with you. Hey,
too.
thanks for joining us on the Brave Way podcast. We'll see you next time. Until we do know this, that you are loved.